What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. Thank you to our title sponsor, Shade Bros. If you are in the Treasure Valley in the Idaho area and you're looking to upgrade your windows, please give us a call, 208-99-SHADE, and we'll come in there. That's me. It is actually my company, so yeah, a little humble brag there, but we'll come in. We can do exterior shades, interior shades, anything that you're looking for, new homes, remodels, all that stuff. Let's upgrade your home. Robert Watson is my co-host. Thank you for hanging out, Robert. Glad to see you. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We got the gremlins in the network, but we think we got them fixed up.
Man, that's wonderful. So, got a great topic today, which is what I love is the two know nothings talking about what did we were called the two know nothings that or nobody know nothings, right?
Yep, nobody know nothings.
So
That's us.
the so the nobody know nothings, the front page Wall Street Journal today, May 18th, 2025, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. America's college towns go from boom to bust. Many state universities are losing more students every year, failing the local economies they once fostered. The know nothings.
The know
Yes,
nothings. It's pretty crazy when
the know nothings.
when these people who know jack shit can get on here and talk about things that don't make any sense. It's funny. We got another comment, and it's the know nothing thing always makes sense to me. But we got another comment about we had a post that got over 6,000 hits on TikTok, which is pretty high compared to the 300 that I normally get. And when that happens, you get a lot of comments coming out of the woodwork. And one of the people said, "Well, you say more than half the country voted for Trump, but only 20% of the country voted at all." Which I just think it's hilarious to hear that rhetoric from anyone. And then I got the old, "Oh, you're a Trump. I used to like you." And I've never said anything about any political affiliation. What we're talking about is the truth. And when the truth comes out, people don't like it. But saying that 20% of the country voted when more people voted in this election than in the previous election. So it doesn't matter. Out of the people who voted, more than 50% of those people who voted for Trump. So your math ain't mathin', is what Nikki said, and it was just kind of funny to hear that happen.
Yeah, it fascinates me. What I've realized, and I haven't told you this, but I'm rewriting parts of the book that I released last year because I realized that people weren't curious.
Uh-huh.
They didn't want to know certain things. They weren't digging in life. And I said, okay, so I'm going to reshift this and make it a different feel to it and address the lack of curiosity. Because the reason I bring all this up is I wrote a story on the 18th of January, 2022, many
Mm-hmm.
moons ago. And it basically was entitled Kids. And it said that 2021, according to the Census Bureau, the U.S. population grew at the slowest rate in recorded history
Right.
for the United States. Recorded history.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the interesting part was we keep talking about things where we're discussing the impact of leadership. Okay. We're not discussing Donald Trump or Joe Biden. That's not what we're discussing.
Right.
We're discussing leadership, period. And so our leaders have disincentivized um, having kids,
Right.
growing your population. At the same time, they've created social safety nets where they require the population to get larger to fund them because they didn't put the money away,
Mm-hmm.
because we've been robbing Peter to pay Paul for a long time. And then we decided to incentivize college by giving people all kinds of debt so that we could grow up institutions that were not going to really help them in the long run with their college degree. And they're going bust. What a shock.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this isn't even really intelligent. But what we're saying about leadership is we have a dearth of leadership in America. And I'm talking about that at the local level all the way to the presidential level. That is, and I'm not criticizing a party. I'm saying across the board, folks, if you've disincentivized having children, so if two people get together and do not have 2.1 children, we will
Right.
not have the same population 40 years from now. This is really not complicated math, right?
No, it's interesting because it is not. And it's funny. Like you can, I'm sure you saw it. Maybe you didn't. There was this Kid Rock said something about it the other day, and it's like we're incentivizing all these different things, and he took it probably a little too far. But he's like, why would anyone want to have kids? And the way that this wokeness is going, like there's so many people that are just out of it because if you have kids, what are they going to be born into? What are they going to have to deal with? When your generation and yes, we're from different generations, but when your generation was young, they had kids right away. Like my parents were 19 when they had my oldest brother, who is now 45. And I'm 43 and then my little brother's 41, but like my parents had kids right away. They got married and the first thing they did was they had 3 kids. And my mom stayed home and my dad worked. And then when I grew up, I was like, oh man, we can't afford to do that. We want to have lots of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to get married. And I told my wife, we're going to wait 5 years before we have kids because I want to get to know you before I have kids. Well, that turned into 10 years because there was so many things that went on. And then by the time we tried to have kids she had a hard time getting pregnant. So it ended up being like 11 or 12 years. So now here we are, we got married when we were 19 and we're like 33 and we have our first child. And you have your first child at 33 and you're like, oh shit, like I'm a little bit older. This is a little bit more work than I anticipated. I don't want to have a second one. And so you kind of let that go, right? And then all of a sudden you have a second one, but it wasn't planned. And now here you are, 43 years old with a 3-year-old. And you're like, shit, I'm tired all the time. So like, this is what's going on top of the fact that there are people who, you have same-sex marriages who typically can't have kids or have to adopt kids, which makes it tougher to happen. And there's just all these weird things that are going on that are stopping the population growth. And people are like, oh, the population is growing. It's not. Like there's a problem. Not. Elon Musk, sorry, I said his name. That's probably the devil word to a lot of people. But when you bring that up, a guy who's super smart, who does the research, is talking about how we're going to run out of people by a certain time. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect you, but it's going to affect the next couple of generations because who's going to do the work? This country, this world is going to get smaller if we are not procreating. And it's insanity to me to think that that's not a big deal.
Well, it was like when the COVID situation kicked off. And again, people were lost. It's tragic. It is what it is. But what I figured out after doing a little math was they weren't really concerned about the number of deaths. They weren't really concerned about the pandemic itself. What they were concerned about is their leadership had not created enough hospitals in key metropolitan areas to deal with any kind of epidemic, not
Right.
necessarily even a pandemic, just an epidemic. And this is leadership.
Right.
And I had found the projection from 1950 that said, you need this many hospitals. We're at 900,000. We need 1.4. And that was on a population of 220 million. We're a population of 330 million. And guess what? We still have 900,000 hospital beds. So what you're really talking about is a dearth of leadership, a dearth of planning, nobody looking out for the long term. No one looking out for the long term. We want to talk about climate change. Folks, please stop. Let's talk about fresh water. Let's talk about clean air. Let's talk about things that are important to us, because here's what, before climate change kills us, if you don't have clean air and clean water, that will, okay?
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is be a diver like me, spending time in a foreign environment, living on an oxygen tank to realize you don't live real long without oxygen.
Yep.
And you don't live real long without water.
It's funny because when you talk about these other people, like you listen to these people who spread lies and then you listen to the people who are talking truth, and it doesn't really matter because the people who are listening to the people who spread lies are so stuck on the fact that they don't like Orange Man that they have a problem with everything that is said that is against him or for him. That's the problem. Instead of looking at the big picture, you look at like the most left-leaning state in the union, which is California, and Gavin Newsom's doing an interview with Adam Carolla, who Adam Carolla, up until a couple of years ago, was very liberal, started to realize that, and he did this interview when he was left-leaning, with Gavin Newsom, and Gavin Newsom's talking about doing things from the bottom up instead of the top down. So like he wants to take care of all the little issues first instead of taking care of the big issues, when there are so many big issues that need to be handled, like homelessness in California, drug use, all those things, shoplifting. These are all things that need to be taken care of. And he doesn't look at that. He's like, oh, I just like to take care of the little things first, like not taking care of any of the big things. And now we have a huge problem in that state. And it's just insane to me. We have people coming here. I listen to, sorry, bumped my mic. I listen to my friend Matt Todd, who does a podcast where he talks on a local level to local government. And we have people who can't even, they want all these things. They moved here from California, from Washington, from Oregon, left-leaning states. And they say, well, we want what Idaho has. But on the same token, they're here trying to change what Idaho does because they don't like it. And there's so many people at a local level that have grown up here, that were born here, that were raised here, that are like, remember why you left. Remember why you're here. Because now you're trying to make this like that. And that is a problem. You have to think about the things that you left and the reasons why you left there. It's insane.
Yeah. Again, people respond to incentives. Carrots and sticks are still used to this very day. If you do something wrong, we're going to hit you with a stick. If you do something right, we're going to continue to incentivize you.
Right.
Our incentives are screwed up. We've talked about that before. You pay a baseball player $750 million. Are you nuts?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. Really? That's your big problem? Not groundwater, not clean air. Come on, really?
Yeah.
These are things this is about leadership. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about at the grassroots level. This is about leadership. This is about saying, okay, if we're going to be good stewards of the land, if we're going to be good stewards of our towns, if we're going to be good stewards, what does that look like? Let's take the big picture here. What does it look like 100 years from now if we build out all that green space with houses?
Right.
What does that look like? And what does the population look like? What does a population curve look like? All I've heard from people, and these are legitimate complaints, is the cost of housing going up.
Right.
And then they say, well, when you have big companies like BlackRock come in and buy a whole host of houses, and you have Airbnb, you're changing the supply-demand dynamics of housing. You are, because you're basically creating demand where there wasn't.
Right.
And that's, again, shifting things. What does that do to a couple who are trying to have kids, and they say, we've got 2 kids, we'd like to have a 3rd child, but our house is not big enough. And to be honest with you, we can't afford to get into a bigger house, so therefore we're not going to have any more kids. If people don't think that's a real discussion, you're wrong. It's a real discussion.
Oh, it is. I mean, you think about it like it's amazing. I'm not going to tell you the size of my house now, but it's way bigger than what we need. But I grew up in a house that was under 1,400 square feet with 3 mm-hmm. boys, 3 bedrooms. My parents, and when you say 3 bedrooms, it depends on how you count that, but that's including the master bedroom. So a master bedroom that my parents slept in, and then 2 of us had to share a room, and then 1 of us had our own room. And parents don't want that anymore, because the whole thing with my generation was always, we need to give our kids more than what our parents gave us. And our parents wanted us to have more than what they had, because that was the way that it was, because everyone said, go to college, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. Have a big home, have all this property, have this. It's all about things. It's not about, the things that it used to be. It's like living in close quarters with my brothers. It was like 2 boys share a room, 2 brothers share a room, no big deal. But then, you think about those other things, like I had a friend that grew up in a house that was a 2-bedroom house, and he had a sister, and it's like, can you imagine growing up sharing a room with your sister? Like those are things that like people had to do. They didn't, and they don't now. I mean, there are people who still do that, but I feel like that amount has gotten smaller and smaller because people are working their ass off. Both parents are working. In my house that I grew up, my mom, until I was about 10, did not work. When we were old enough to take care of ourselves, after school and before school, when my oldest brother could drive or we could ride the bus or whatever, we were able to do that. Now it's like my daughter doesn't want to ride the bus. Not that she can't where we live to her school, but if she could, she'd ride the bus, because I'm not going to sit there and I have things I have to do. So those are things that we all count on, and now we don't really count on that anymore because we should drop them off. I mean, I posted a TikTok about this the other day. I'm at the drop off line. I pull up to the drop off line and I give her a kiss on the head and say, get out. You know, it's like, I don't say, not like that. Sometimes I do, but it's like, it's time for you to go. Well, we're in this line of 5 or 6 cars that fit in the lane, and then they back up behind and they go out into the road and this and that. And I've got a parent getting out of the car to hug and kiss and talk to their child before they let them go. And it's like, this is insane. Like, or how do our kids learn how to take care of themselves when you can't even, push them off without that? And I mean, that's one person's thoughts, and that's the way I look at it. But it's like, we are just coddling them way too much. And if you're going to do that, then go park, get out of your car, walk them to the classroom. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, again, this is a discussion about what are the big priorities you're trying to do. You're trying to get a generation ready to take charge and run their lives. You're saying that, and I'm saying that, again, I'm not trying to be a climate scientist because I'm not, but here's the point. I think if we take care of clean water and clean air, I'm going to bet that the climate change issue kind of takes care of itself.
Right.
Just saying. Okay. And I'm much more concerned about, that picture across the board. These are the things that, again, I'm concerned that you're going to have the wrong incentives in college. Why? Because you're basically telling everybody that everybody can be. Listen, when you're a high school graduation class, a quarter of your graduation class went to college. 3/4 of your class didn't. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, there's a reason why the top quarter went to college, because they're smart, book smart. Okay. Doesn't mean they're smart, it means they're book smart. And so what did they do? They continued their education. Did that make sense? Well, it seemed to for our population. Okay. So in other words, we keep trying to stick a square peg in a round hole for a lot of things. Okay. This is across the board. We're basically saying everybody go to college because it makes a difference. I'm like, now you've changed college.
Yeah.
You keep trying to manipulate things that don't need manipulating. Okay. We do need incentives. Absolutely. You want to create something better. You want to create a better educational system, take us away from 22 and 24, which is where I believe we rank in math and English.
Yeah.
Or math and language. If you want to take us over there, you might want to pay your teachers more. Just saying.
You look at it too. Like, I mean, college is just like anything else. We talk about supply and demand, right? Okay. So the supply of college graduates was low when I was, and this is 26 years ago. When I was in high school, it was low. So let's tell everyone to go to college because we need more educated people, right? That's what we should do. So let's make it easy for everyone to get an education. So we'll give everyone loans. We'll allow all these people to go, this and that, blah, 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 blah. The idea was that, well, we're going to get more doctors. We're going to get more lawyers. We're going to get more educated people. And what happened was everyone could go to college, but not everyone's qualified to go to college. So let's get these kids to get a communications degree, right? Or a liberal arts degree, which in theory it didn't do anything other than get you an education, and it got you 4 more years of school. Because those people get those jobs, and what do? They get out and they don't know what the hell to do with their degree, because their degree doesn't really qualify them to do anything other than what it would have qualified them to do if they didn't go to college. So now all of a sudden we have this inflated economy that has all these college graduates who theoretically are supposed to make more money but have nowhere to go. What do? We lower wages, or we tell you to go do this other job. But now you have all this mountain of debt, and we have people complaining about, well, I need my student loans forgiven. I need this, I need that, because I can't afford to do that. And you gave me all this money to go to school with the lie that I was going to make more money, and now I can't make more money. Why are we doing this? So now we have this overinflated. Pay goes down, just like buying a product. If someone wants 100 frickin' Superman bobbleheads, it's going to be worth $25. But if everyone wants 1,000 of them, it's going to be worth 25 cents. So what do you got? You got exactly what they wanted. They got more money. They got more debt. They're inflating the economy. It's like, let's print the money so that these people can survive.
Right. And there's no if you're in a corporate setting, here's what happens. If you start to do bad things, your bottom line suffers. And so you basically can look at your bottom line and adjust. Like I had this, well, for example, let's take my book. It did not sell as well as I wanted it to. So what I'm doing is I'm changing the cover and I'm rewriting the first 5 chapters and manipulating it a little bit to be more mainstream. Why? Because I found out I didn't have an audience that I thought I had. What does that mean? It's still a good book. It still did, but it didn't get where I wanted to go. So what I'm doing is I'm adjusting.
Yep.
We don't seem to adjust. If you're looking at our leadership, they don't adjust.
Right.
They just continue to do more of whatever it is,
They double down.
regardless of what the incentives are. Right. And my point is that if you monitored the process, you would have figured out, which you didn't, that all that money you were pumping into college wasn't getting the desired result. And you would have seen that and said, hold on, we need to look at the way we're incentivizing this. We need to see the feedback. We need to look at the metrics because, again, whether we like it or not, a market in a capitalist system works very, very simple. I don't print and make books that don't sell.
Right.
That's it. Really, really simple. And the feedback mechanism is really quick because I'm watching it every month, right? And going, what do I need to do? Well, then I just got a little study group together and said, hey, what was the impact? Why are my audience not buying? Well, here's what you need to do. Change the cover, do this, do that. So I'm listening.
Right.
Okay, now I could get prideful and say, well, that was really a good idea. So it didn't sell.
Right.
My pride doesn't matter. This is a business. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great concept, and I wanted to sell more of it. It's the same thing with making college affordable. That's fine, but double check down the line and see what you're contorting. Be careful, right? That you're monitoring what the impact is, and then you can come back and say, "Hold on a second, we're doing this. This is not doing it the right way. We're creating this kind of problem." Why are these small universities suffering? Well, number one, they're in the Northeast, and the population about 50 years ago started moving south. Shocker. Okay.
Yeah.
So you start there, number one. Number two, college standing. Where do students go? They want to go where they can get a job. What do they want? They want a top university. Why? Gets them a better job because they're competing. A college degree is not enough.
So they are told. I mean, that's the big thing is like, let's take my degrees as an example because I have a master's and a bachelor's in both in education. Let's think about that. Okay. Do you think that if I went to Harvard or if I went to Boise State where I got my degree, that it would matter if they hired me? I mean, maybe they might take, oh, this guy's a Harvard educated person, but like on the same fact, like I'm going to get hired somewhere because I have 2 degrees. It doesn't matter where those degrees come from. And everyone is like, well, let's go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to Harvard to get a degree in education. I don't even know if Harvard has a degree in education. They may or may not. I'm assuming that they, yeah. But if they did, like, then why would I do that? You know, like that's the thing. It's you're spending all this money to go there. When I was a teacher, the coolest thing that I saw was that you could go to Idaho has I can't remember what it's called, but they have a scholarship set up where you can take classes from, and it's free money. You could take classes from CWI, which is College of Western Idaho, which is a junior college. And you could get classes there that count towards your degree as you're taking classes in high school. It's called dual credit. So kids have like $1,600 to take these dual credits. It's like $300, I think, a class or something like that, a credit that they can use. So they could basically have a Associates of Arts degree when they graduate from high school for free. So now you're halfway through college if you want to go. And if not, then you have a degree that you could say, well, I do have a degree, you know, and that could be, you know, just by taking your regular classes. Why in the hell would you not do that? You know, why wouldn't you do that? And it's free. So I don't know. I mean, it's just insane that we sit here and we go through and we're like, we're not going to do that. But I've got an AA. I either go on or I don't. But I got it in high school. Like, why aren't we doing more stuff like that instead of just saying, well, you just graduated high school, you didn't get any classes, you should go to, this school and pay, $10,000 a semester to go to school. Or you could go out and just make the same amount of money that you're going to make, unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, right? Because those are the ones that make the big money.
Right. And so, but it's really just the metrics, like you say, on the back end, looking at what we're saying works and what we're saying doesn't work. And instead, what you got, for example, in the article from the Wall Street Journal today, is it's basically saying, oh my gosh, look at the shock. All these small schools, population enrollment is dropping, and it's been dropping for several years. And you're thinking to yourself, and this is a story for you? Okay, where was leadership going? Forget the story.
Yeah.
Where is leadership in America basically saying, hey, this is probably not very smart? Because you got to remember, some of this was done at the state level. So this isn't just the national level, this is at the state level, where you're literally putting state money into these institutions. How did that make sense?
And you're going to college right now. I mean, you're working on degrees. Tell me this. If enrollment is down, just like we talked about supply and demand, if enrollment is down, have these colleges dropped their tuition fees down because supply and demand?
God, no. Oh, God,
why
no.
isn't college become cheaper? If less people are going, why are we charging the same amount? And it's funny because in anything, like we talk to suppliers, I sell window coverings for a living. We talk to these suppliers. It's like, well, we're going to put a tariff on this. Okay, so the tariff's there. Now we've made a negotiation that the price is going to be, or the tariff is going to be less. Has the price gone down? Have prices gone down? Demand is lower. Have prices gone down? No. And that's the funny thing about it, is that they did lower the tariffs, but they haven't dropped the prices. It costs less to make that good, but we're not going to drop that. Or less people are buying this. We're going to leave it where it's at. I've never seen a decrease in product. I've been doing this for 6 years, selling window coverings. When I worked in the tire industry for 11 years, there was never a decrease. It was always going up. So if it's always going up, but the demand is down, then why aren't we lowering prices? Why aren't we making it easier for people to survive?
Well, in that we talk about, how many companies make railroad cars. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that the number of companies making railroad cars is much less than it was 100 years ago? Why? Less railroad cars.
Yep.
Okay. So there's just a supply. And I understand that people are saying, well, it's hard to see. It's not hard to see if you're in that business. Mm-hmm. If you were a buggy whip maker in 1900, okay, and you're a buggy whip maker today, wow, I think the demand's down.
Yep.
Okay, and I think probably 9 out of 10 buggy whip manufacturers are out of business. Just might be.
Yep.
Okay, these are all market forces. And the question for us is, when government gets in the middle, what happens to it? They distort the marketplace.
Right.
Why? Because they don't have the same forces driving them. And that's all we're asking is, let the marketplace determine what's going on, adjust, stop incentivizing. You didn't need to put $1.6 trillion worth of student loan debt. Wasn't necessary to get the population where you wanted. It wasn't necessary to get the people you were trying to do who were impoverished, who needed a break up. What you did was you brute forced a problem, and now you created what? Other consequences, other problems that we now have to deal with because you weren't paying attention to your first set of incentives. That's what I'm saying when I'm saying a lack of leadership.
Yep. Yeah, it's insane to me. One last thing I'll leave it on is you think about like the Doge thing. Like when we had the COVID incentive or whatever, these COVID checks that went out, the country basically printed money to hand out to people. That's what they did. There was no surplus of money. There was no nothing. They gave money to give you money to be able to spend so that they can make the economy better. With the Doge cuts, they're talking about giving this money back to the people, but it's money that they found that was wasted. So they're not printing more money. They're just taking the money that was delegated to, whether you like that or not, that was delegated to places where it shouldn't be, and they're going to give it back to the people who paid the taxes to get that. That's a complete different scenario. And so when we look at problem solving, Would you rather have money that was printed and inflated and given to you that's not really there, has no value, or would you rather have money that you paid and get your money back? I mean, to me, it's a real simple. But now we don't like it because someone we don't like made the decision to do that. It's insane.
Yep.
So great conversation as always, Robert. Appreciate you. If you guys haven't noticed, there's a little bit of changing in my studio going on. I got a couple chairs behind us. We're going to be doing a Shaping Success Treasure Valley. That's coming up. I have done one little short episode of it. I'll probably do a solo episode and talk about it a little bit more. But we're going to start bringing, I live in the Treasure Valley. Robert lives in Texas. This is a more of me and Robert having a conversation. And we'll talk about the changes a little bit there. We're going to try and rethink the name of Roberts, but I have a network of podcasts basically, and they're currently mine, but we're going to add people to it if we can get other people who want to be on the network. But this is something that has been in the works for a very long time, and we're shifting gears a little bit, and this will stay here. It may look a little different. We'll also have a local one and a couple other things going on, but it's good having Robert here to have a conversation. Like I said, we're just two different generations talking about different things in the way that we see the world, and hopefully we have a little bit of people who actually look into and do the research and understand that what you see is not what you get in this world. A lot of conversation going on about weird stuff that no one's really doing research to, but they want to just tell you what they see, so.
Well, have a wonderful week.
You too. Thanks, Robert. And we'll see everyone next time.